Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. My name is Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 271 of the Wannabe Clutter Free podcast. On today's episode, I am continuing the Clutter Freedom Method series that I've started. We're still in number 1, which is Find Your Number, and we're covering 10 areas in your life that clutter affects you. And it's not just the physical stuff in your home, because clutter affects, yes, that, but also your mental and your emotional life as well. And so this week we are focusing on your social life and how clutter can dampen it and affect it in ways that maybe you don't know. And last week I talked about how I was going to bring you some statistics, and I am not going to disappoint today. But before we hop into that, I want to say a big thank you to you for joining me today and making this podcast part of your weekly routine. I really do appreciate it. And if you like what you hear today, please go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of the amazing episodes we have coming up for you. All right, let's get into today's episode, because if you have ever texted maybe next month to a friend or a playdate or having people over because your house feels out of control, well, that's what we are covering today. Today, we are going to make hosting possible for you, because it's not about the perfectionism of your home. It's not about what your house looks like. I promise. Even myself, people that do this for a living, or your friends aren't coming over to judge your house. They want to come and connect with you. But so many people struggle to be vulnerable, open their homes up, and let people in. So I want us to strike a balance today. This is not about perfectionism, but it's not about having a messy home and just letting everybody come over. No. We are going to work on how we can bridge that gap. Let's get some clutter under control so that we feel more comfortable, but not force ourselves to get all the way there before we're willing to open our doors. All right? Can you stick with me for this and be open to this being a possibility for you? I think it's going to make a big difference in your life, because I'm going to give you some of those stats. I know I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm just so busy. Oh, our house is a mess." And when you walk in, I've been guilty of it too. "Please don't look around. My house is a mess. I haven't got a chance to clean it up." Old me, right? I'm trying really hard to not say those words anymore. And a lot of people do this. In a national survey, 52% of people, 52%, the majority of people, canceled hosting due to the state of their home. And 65% of people felt shame or embarrassment about their home. That's a lot of people. So we are not alone, okay? A 2025 poll found that 73% of people avoid showing guests parts of their home because of clutter. How many of you have shoved stuff in another room and closed the door and been like, "Nope, no one's going to get to go in there"? Pretty much all of us, right? Well, 73% of us. Younger adults too. So about 45% of Gen Z and millennials would feel embarrassed if someone saw their home as it is. Now, a lot of you listening to this are cuspers like me. I think my birth year is Gen X, but I am 100% a millennial at heart. So I guess I'm one of those elder millennials, geriatric millennials, something like that. But a lot of you listening to this are falling into this category. And then I think we also know that it is affecting our children, right? So reviews of household chaos connect disorganization and clutter and, a messy house with higher parenting stress and with weaker child social emotional outcomes across incomes. So regardless of your socioeconomic standing, this is still playing a part. So chaotic homes drain the capacity for playdates, for drop-ins, for, just impromptu moments of social activity, which means your children are becoming more isolated because we're not having as many of these just moments. Like, I've noticed that kids don't just come and knock on the door anymore for playdates. Like, that's how we used to do it when I was a kid. You just would run around the neighborhood and knock on the doors and, "Hey, is, Mary able to play?" "Sure, okay." And you would just go in and nobody really cared. And trust me, houses were messier then. The house I grew up in had stuff everywhere and nobody cared. So part of it is that we are caring about things we didn't care about before. And then we're letting it affect how we show up and how we connect with other people. And we're becoming more and more isolated because we're spending more time online. So none of it is healthy. None of it is healthy. So all this is to say that it is not a personal failure, right? This is not all on you. Societally, we are struggling with this. And I think we're putting more pressure on ourselves in every aspect of our life, also in how we maintain our homes. And we're putting a lot of our identity into that. And it's just creating more disconnection between the people. So the people that mean the most to us. So we are actually building up these walls and putting up these barriers and stopping ourselves from doing the things that we need to do in order to feel better about ourselves, in order to want to have more connection. And so it is this catch-22, and it is continuing to go around this circle, and we never really can connect and meet. And that is what I want to help us do today. All right. So now let's look at how it shows up for busy families, because most of you listening to this are going, all right, okay, what do we do now? So how does this show up? We see all these statistics, which I will have links in the show notes so you can see where all these stats are coming from. And if you want those links, go to wannabeclutterfree.com/271, wannabeclutterfree.com/271. I touched on this briefly, but we are now avoiding playdates because our living room is a mess, right? Perhaps you have Legos everywhere. You've got the Lego minefield, and you think, oh, you're having that moment at school pickup. Let me know if this sounds familiar. And the kids are super excited, and they want, they've been playing all day with their friends, and they want to continue playing. And you think, oh my gosh, the house is a disaster. I've got laundry on the couch. I've got dishes all over the kitchen. The games we played with last night are still on the dining table. The Legos are everywhere. There's just no way. No, I am not inviting this new family over to our house because the house is a mess. Or maybe you have company clean marathons in your house. And so you spend the entire day Saturday cleaning so that you can have people over that night. And then come Sunday by noon, it's already a mess again. Or definitely by the next week when you want to have people over. Again, if you're trying really hard to do this, you're like, okay, I'm going to commit, I'm going to do it. But then you spend all day Saturday cleaning. And you never feel like you get a break. You never have that downtime. It's never fun to have people over. It's always a chore. And so it just starts to be one of those things that you're going to pull back from and do less and less and less because it's work. Or maybe it's causing tension. We talked about this in your romantic life, right? So maybe one partner wants to host and the other one feels like, I've just got too much going on. I don't have time to do the cleanup. I don't really want to host people. There's just a lot going on. My week was so stressful that by the time the weekend gets here, I just want to chill and do something else. And so, it starts to cause problems in your romantic life. We talked about this in episode 265. So if this feels like you, go check that one out. But it also can show up in this dynamic where maybe one partner wants to host and the other one is just like, I just can't deal with it. Or maybe you have analysis paralysis and you don't know where to start. So you just never send out the invites in the first place. And then you start to feel lonely and you start to feel like you're doing all of this alone and that village never gets built because you're just embarrassed by how your home feels, right? Does any of that ring a bell or show up for you? So maybe those statistics at the beginning didn't feel right, or you're like, yeah, I do. But then this really translates it into, oh, it really is keeping people from my home and keeping me from making those deeper connections and having those friendships that I want, and being able to host people. I hear this a lot. So if this is feeling like you, I want to give you a quick mindset reset that you can work on. I want you to think about people over perfection. So your home can be company ready without it being showroom ready. Again, we're not trying to have magazine-worthy spreads in our home unless that really jazzes you up and it doesn't make you feel wiped out and that's really what you want to do, go for it. But if that feels too much, it's too much for me. My house is not showroom ready. Far from it, but I feel like it's company ready. We can have people come in and yes, there's going to be little messes here and there. And no, it's not perfect. Not everything's put away. There might be dishes out from lunch or, that I've washed and they're drying or whatever, but it's okay. It's company ready. People are here to visit with us, not to judge our homes. So I want us to think people over perfection. All right. That's one great way to do it. Also, reframe hosting instead of like having people over to show off your home, you're having people over to have a connection, right? You want to be able to just chill out. It's less about showing off and more about being real and just being who you are and connecting with your friends. And I want you to know that good enough, right? Good enough zones, a space for you to hang out is way better than a perfect house down the road, right? Good enough now where you can hang out with your friends is better than a perfect house where you can host these unattainable, perfect moments and play dates and connection and dinner parties and events later. All right. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to work on a few systems that can bring your social life back. They're very actionable and things you can implement right away. All right, thanks to this week's sponsors. Let's get into some systems that you can do in your home to make you feel ready to host again. And if this scares you, if hosting scares you, then we're going to make it a little bit easier, okay? So the first one is the 15-minute company ready reset. I want you to focus on 3 areas. The first is your entryway, and this just means I want you to just tidy it up. Doesn't have to be perfect, but put the things in a bin if you need them to, put the shoes away, hang up the coats, make sure there's just a little space, tiny little space, a little margin for someone else to come in, take their shoes off, feel comfortable taking their shoes off, feel comfortable hanging up their coats or their bags and coming into your home. Just a quick little area, look at your entryway. The second area is your kitchen, because that's where everyone gravitates. Every time I've hosted people, everyone ends up in the kitchen. Doesn't matter whose home we're at, my home, someone else's home. If the kitchen is tiny, that's still where everybody is. So the kitchen should be ready. This is going to help you feel comfortable about saying, yes, come on over. So clear off your counters as best you can. Put your dishes away on a regular basis. Think about having some sort of snack on hand. I always like to have cheese, crackers, and some nuts on hand because that is so easy to put together a little charcuterie board. And it doesn't take up a lot of space. It's not difficult to put together. Those are pretty easy staples to have on my grocery list every week. So that's how you can get your kitchen together. And then the third area I want you to have cleared off is your coffee table. So if by chance you are lucky enough to get people out of your kitchen and sitting in your living room, which I still struggle with, then if the coffee table is cleared off, it's great for a place to be able to put a drink that you're having or that little snack plate. Especially when you do have littler kids, it is easier to gravitate toward the living room because the kids will be playing in there while you are sitting on the couch and having a conversation. So these are your 3 areas. To get them ready, I want you to set a timer. Think about 5-5-5, right? Like we're making a film call on the movies from the 80s. So 5-5-5, 5 minutes in each space is going to make a huge difference. Use a speed bin and collect things for anything that's out of place that belongs in another room. I like to use just my laundry basket, one of those plastic ones with the handles. Super easy to go around and use as your holding zone to clear out these spaces quickly when you need to, and you can be ready in 15 minutes. So if you get an impromptu play date and people are coming over from school, you can say, hey, just give me a few minutes. I'm going to run back to my house. I'll meet you there. Here's our address. If you have a little extra time and you want to be proactive, spend 15 minutes before you leave for school pickup or 15 minutes before you go on the weekends to the kids' sports activities so that you can do this quick 15-minute pickup and be ready if you do have an impromptu moment where your kids are like, hey, can Jenny come over and play? Can we have them over to our house? Now you're able to say yes in a very easy and less stressful way. Okay? So hopefully that's helpful. All right, number 2 is going to be the Playdate prep. So near your door, this is really great for when you do finally say yes and you have the kids come over and they make a mess of your house, right? So here's how you can help do a quick little sweep before your friend leaves. So you're going to have 3 bins and they can be tidy, return, and the third one is just going to be your trash can. So it's really easy. You only need 2 bins really. So I want you to train your kids to do a 3-minute sweep before the friend leaves. Just like, hey, we're going to do a quick tidy up. So go ahead and take everything we've out, pop them in these 3 bins. That way you're not asking the kids and everyone to completely tidy up the house, makes it really simple. And then there's things are put away. These are things that need to be returned to another room. And then things that are garbage, any of the snacks that you've eaten or the drinks or the juice boxes, anything like that, go right in the trash. And you're not stuck finding a straw underneath the couch 3 weeks later that's now kind of moldy and a science experiment. Okay? So that one is just a nice way to make sure that things are continually cleaned up after your play dates so that it's not so stressful for you once everyone leaves and you're more likely to say, let's do that again. All right, so the third way that we can work on bringing our social life back when we are overcoming these clutter hurdles is to keep it light. So this is like a kind of a diet option. Hey, this is the social light version. Go ahead and have a play date in your backyard. Have it somewhere at a park. Make it something that's really easy and not so focused on your home. So keep it simple. Don't worry so much about having to, have a snack or like that charcuterie board like I talked about, even though that can be really simple. If we're really starting and we're like nervous about it, make it simple. Meet at a park. We used to do this when my daughter was in elementary school. There's often parks right next to the school. And when she was younger, we would just be like, all right, let's go meet at the park afterwards. And so we could bring snacks if we wanted. We didn't have to. Generally, everyone had their own snacks, but it was just a nice way for like an hour or 2 after school to continue with the kids being able to play and you getting to meet the parents and the families right after school. Now, if that's not an option for you, maybe you're doing the after school care with some families. Maybe you say, hey, why don't we go to the pizza place down the street after we pick up the kids this week? And you can have it outside of your home, but you're still getting that social interaction and you're still building your village little by little. Again, a lot of this is through repetition. So we're not going to be best friends with someone the first time we meet them. And as we get older, it's harder to make friends. So if we're struggling here in our social life and we're wanting to have this, but we're afraid to invite people over to our home, maybe we start completely outside of our home. And that is okay too. Okay? We want to keep things simple. So a script that you might say, just if we're doing it in our backyard, just say, we're going to keep things simple. Come as you are. We're going to have some popsicles. We're going to be in our backyard, jumping on the trampoline. Keep it really easy. Or if you want to not have people over to your home and we're doing the after care pickup, right? So you work out of the home, your kids go to the after school program. There's a family there that your kids, really click with. And we're like, hey, okay, great. Would you like to go for pizza this Friday after we pick the kids up from after school care? Now you've set the intention, the date. It's not at your house, but you're getting to know them and you're building that social circle. And then as that becomes more comfortable, you can start to then invite them over to your home after you've decluttered a little bit, if that's keeping you from having people over. Okay? Let's take another quick break to hear from this week's sponsors. And when we come back, I've got 3 more systems for you to help encourage more social connectivity, even if your home feels cluttered. So another way you can start to build some community outside of your home, if you're not quite ready to invite people home because you're still working on decluttering and getting it ready, is to do things outside your home, continuing like we said, but maybe they're just for you, or they're not quite a play date or as structured, right? So I used to go for a walk every morning with my neighbor before she would leave for work and after our girls left for school. It was an age where they overlapped for 1 year at the school, and so they would walk together. And then she and I would go for a walk as well. And it was really lovely. I loved having that moment together with her. Unfortunately, that time has passed. And so we have to do our walks at a different time. But that was just a really easy way for us to have that connection point as well. So maybe that is a time that could work for you. If you have a neighbor that you could go for a coffee walking date or just a walking date, and have some time with someone in your neighborhood. Be a little creative here. A few episodes ago, I talked about a free sale that we had in our neighborhood, and it was another great way to work on decluttering and building connection. So that was simply sending out a text message to my neighbors on our street to say, hey, I'm going to be putting stuff out on my driveway on Saturday. It's all for free. One, if you want to come take a look at it, now you get first dibs. But two, if you also want to put things out in your driveway, I'm advertising this. And so you can go ahead and do that as well. And we can build this as a community event. That way people can stop by our yard and your yard, and it just makes it a little bit easier. And then because I was out in my yard, more people stopped by to say hi. And then actually, some of the neighbors in this one, the neighbors brought things to my yard. If you listen to that episode, you'll hear that. But it was just another great connection point. We were outside all day chatting with each other. And so it was really, really nice. It was a great way to be able to, kill two birds with one stone, as the saying goes, where I decluttered and put things out on my yard, but it also helped build up my social life and our social circles and have those moments of connection. Okay, another thing you can do if you are working on having people into your home is to create company-ready zones. It's kind of that 15-minute method I talked about earlier, but really just making sure that the areas where your guests are going to be, you feel the most comfortable with, right? So decluttering specifically for your social life. This might be looking at the guest bathroom and making sure that that is ready, making sure the living room path is ready, making sure the guest room is ready. So maybe you don't want to start with these more superficial relationships. Maybe you want to start with a deeper relationship and you want to invite a guest over to stay at your home, and you actually have a guest room or a couch. So you want to make sure it feels good for the people that are actually coming to stay with you, and we're forming deeper bonds. Or we're inviting friends over that aren't going to judge us as much because they've known us longer. So let's look at decluttering the guest bathroom and making sure they have space to put their things when they come to stay. Make sure the guest room is cleared out. One of my clients, that was the one room that she wanted to work on first when we worked together, because she was having to work from home. Her job situation changed, and so she was getting to work from home. And so she had to set up an office in her guest room, and then the guest room had just become the catch-all. So we worked together virtually to help her clean that room out. And over the course of just a couple weeks, actually, she got it all cleared out. And so that was one of the things that was big for her. She wanted to have this space for her office and for her mother-in-law to come visit. And so by clearing out that room, it relieved so much stress for her. And it was just a moment of like, okay, I can do this again. And she felt so much more capable and in control of her own home, and was able to then start hosting again. And she felt better about taking work meetings in this room. And it only took a couple weeks for her to really get it under control. So it doesn't have to be one big day. It doesn't have to be drudgery, and it doesn't have to hold you back anymore. You actually can make progress faster than you think. And she could have done it faster, but she had a lot going on in her life. So she wanted to take it a little slow, and she knew that it was a couple weeks out. So she was able to use that as a great finish line for her to get the room sorted. And then another way we can do this is just to work it in to our regular routines. So if this is a goal that we have for ourselves, we can put this on the calendar. We do this as a family where we have an admin day once a week. And so we will have a cleaning time, we will have project time, so a house project time, and then we'll have a catch-up time. So if the cleaning took a little longer, or our house project took a little longer, or we have a second house project we want to work on, or we want to declutter, this is where we will do that. And we generally stick to just 1 hour a week, and we can get so much done when we are focused. But depending on what your project is, if you're wanting to have more social time, you're wanting to have more connection with people, and you're wanting to do that, this is a great way to work that in. And so everyone can reset and help you to create a moment where we work in, getting ready for guests. And again, this is to make it your home for other people. But so many women that I talk to feel like they have given up this social aspect of their life, and they are constantly working on their home and their families and, working and doing all these other things that they feel like they have lost out on this connection piece. And so if this is you, this is where you can help and start to bring back that village mentality and that connection point. If this doesn't affect you and you are like, why am I listening to this? Well, then great, fantastic. You probably are feeling fulfilled in your life. But if you're not, this is one way you can do it. And then if you are struggling here and you're like, I just don't actually ever have people over, then as a family, pick who you want to come over and structure that, right? Plan it in, calendar it in, and once a week say, okay, I'm inviting someone. We're going to have 2 guests over a month. Maybe start with 1. We're going to have 1 guest a month. Who do we want to have over to our house this month? And then next month have someone else, and be really strategic about it. Not because we're being strategic with our friends, but we are just saying, I'm committing to this and I'm doing it because it is so easy for us to look back and be like, we haven't had anybody over to our house in 3 months. And then it just is harder to actually do it again, right? It's so much harder when you get out of the practice. So plan for once a month, we're going to have people over. And then, okay, I'm going to calendar it in. Here's when I'm going to invite people over. And if they're free that week, great. If they're not, here's who else I'm going to invite over. And just make sure you get it on the list and get it done. Put it on your calendar so it actually does get done if you feel like connection is something that's been missing for you. All right. So we really don't have to do too much in order to get people to come over. Do one of these things. I think I laid out 6 systems that you can do to help you get over that hurdle about having people over into your life and into your home. Remember, again, people over perfection. People are not coming into your home to judge you. They want to come hang out with you and be friends with you. And they're probably missing a lot of that connection too. I find that it's just kind of rampant right now. And it's probably a busy time in my life. I feel like where I am in my season of life is just busy. School has gone back into session. I feel like I haven't seen our neighbors in a long time, probably since that free sale day that I chatted about. So I've seen other friends, but there are some friends that I'm feeling like that connection is behind. So I'm trying to find a time for us to get together and have them over to our home because if we're not intentional about this stuff, it really does just go to the wayside. So I have found that when I feel more prepared, again, not perfect, but feel more prepared and have a few things running, like I said, a few staples in my pantry so that if people have an impromptu play date, it's much easier. The systems that I do in the morning and do a tidy reset every night help me feel more prepared that if someone did come over to my house, it wouldn't be a problem. If there's things on my desk, nobody cares, but I do have a system of it, just clear it off every day, and make sure that things are just neat. They don't have to be perfect, but if they're just neat, it's so much easier for me to be comfortable to say, sure, come on over. We'd love to have you. And then I'm more relaxed when they are in our home as well. I hope that makes sense. All right. So again, back to those stats from earlier, more than half of people have canceled hosting because of their home. So you are not alone. Please take steps so that you can start having people over, clear a little bit of that clutter. If you need help with that, reach out. I would love to be able to help you and point you in the right direction and give you some guides and tips so that you can get your home running effortlessly, so that it can be easy for you, so that you know that you're comfortable in your home. It is lighting you up, and so that your home works for you instead of you working for your home. Don't forget, you can get resources at those show notes, wannabeclutterfree.com/271, wannabeclutterfree.com/271 for the resources and more information on how clutter does affect our social life. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, take a moment to rate and review the show or come on over and join in the conversation. There are so many places where we can connect. If you're listening to this podcast, you can leave a comment on most of the players these days. Otherwise, come on over to YouTube or Instagram. I am at Wannabe Clutter Free. And on Facebook, I have a private community, the Wannabe Minimalist family group over there. I would love to chat with you and have a conversation and see if you have any tips for hosting, how it's made your life easier to let go of some of the clutter so you can have people in your life, or if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. All right, next week, join me for a guest interview. I will be talking with Kamini Woods. We're talking about limiting beliefs, not just with our stuff, but in our lives. And it was a really great conversation. As I said to her when I was in the conversation, gosh, that was a little mini therapy session for myself. So if you are a high achiever and you struggle with perfectionism, raise my hand over here. It is like the theme of my life. But I have learned to let go of a lot, and it's really a fun conversation. I think you're going to love it. She talks a lot about how to overcome those limiting beliefs, and I think it will really help you in your life. So give it a listen. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe so you're notified when it comes out. Until next time, take care, keep things simple, and practice on expanding your circle. Whether that's with a playdate outside your home, inviting someone over into your home, or just putting it on the calendar to make sure that it actually gets done. I know you can do it. You can do anything that you put your mind to. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.